What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Cast Conversations. I'm Jeremy, and Phil's actually out in Disney today, so I'm going to be alone in the trenches for this episode. I was just going to make a quick little one while he's gone, just to talk a little bit about my experience in the Disney College program, and then when he gets back, he can make an episode about his experience and his time while he was doing the Disney College program. So when I was down there, I was, like I said earlier, I was Photopass. I worked in Hollywood Studios, and it was just so much fun. Like, I know it's easy to just say it was fun, and I'm sure everyone that talks about the Disney College program has a good time, but it was just such a phenomenal experience, and I couldn't recommend it anymore. So I got accepted back in October of 2018, and I kept it a big secret from my friends, and I'd joke around with them, and when I finally told them, it was this big whole thing, and it was just so exciting. So me and my parents, we drove down to Florida. It was a 19-hour drive, and it was a lot of fun. So then when we got there, I had already met with two of my roommates, Michael and Dominic, and the other three were random because Disney changed the way how they were going to be doing their roommate matching for the term that I went down. So it was a little weird going in, not knowing three of my roommates, but in the end, it ended up being really, really good. I got really close with Casey, and I couldn't imagine what the program would have been without meeting them. So it was really awesome. But I'm going to talk a little bit about Photopass, and I'm kind of just going now. We usually have an outline that we use. Phil makes really good outlines for our podcast, but I was just thinking I could just kind of talk off the top of my head and just give you just kind of a raw podcast about just kind of what's going through my head right now. So when I got there, it was actually kind of funny. On my first day, I was my first day of actually training, because you have to go through a big whole process that we'll talk more on probably when we do a Disney College program episode for people that are interested in the program, or people that are looking to find a little bit more information. So my first day actually training, I was about, I think I was like an hour or so late. I just could not find the cast entrance to Hollywood Studios. And it was just so funny because I was like, I will not be late on the first day. I will not be late on the first day. Lo and behold, I'm like an hour or so late. And then I call the people. I'm freaking out. I'm like, I can't find the cast parking. And they're like, no, it's fine. This happens a lot. Like, it's difficult to find because it's kind of on like a beaten, like an offbeat track. You have to really know what you're looking for to get into it. So I finally made it after like calling them so many times, but I didn't even make it to the cast parking lot. They just sent me the directions of where we're going to be meeting up at. So I went there, and it was ridiculous because I felt so bad. I just could not find where we were going to. And I showed up. Everyone was like joking around with me, like giving me a hard time. I was fine with that because I was better them just give me a hard time and make fun of me a little bit than them be mad at me and term me the first day, because that's what I thought. I was like, I'm going to get removed from the program the very first day. It would have been awful, especially to drive down the 19 or so hours just to be sent back. But the Photopass training is super extensive. So we were talking about it on the first podcast a little bit, but it starts out, I believe it was 5 days of like kind of in classroom and going to the parks to shoot a little bit. So the first 2 days, I don't even think you touch a camera. You're just in a classroom going over like the 5 principles of photography, going over like emergency routes and kind of more like important things to know just as a photographer, I suppose. And then we started getting our hands onto the cameras, and it was kind of cool because you don't even need to be a photographer to be in Photopass. A lot of people in my party or my group, like they never even touched a DSLR camera, so it was really cool to get to see them grow as a photographer too. So we finally got our cameras, and we got all strapped up, and we decided to head out to Magic Kingdom or Hollywood Studios. And so we went there, we had lunch, and then it was time to start shooting in the streets. And so at this point, I'm sure the Photopass, we wear those khaki vests. And so they didn't have us wear those, kind of just as a way to keep guests from, or have guests know that we aren't fully Photopass yet. We are still training. All we would do is just shoot pictures of each other. We'd go and test creative shots, test pose shots, test magic shots, anything we could think of. We were just testing those pictures just to get a feel for the camera, get a feel for the location, everything. So it was super beneficial. I think that was a 2-day thing. So after that, then it was time to break off into our park designated training. So me and Jacob, that was who I was training with, we went to Hollywood Studios, back to Hollywood Studios because that was our home park, and we got trained under Brian and Trisha, and I doubt they're going to listen to this, but they are the best trainers I think I could have had at the parks. I'm so happy I had them. I appreciate all they did for me. I don't think I would have been as successful as I was if I didn't have those two training me. So a big thank you to Brian and Trisha. So we learned through them. They gave us a full tour of the park. They showed us the ins and the outs. They showed us where to take our lunch, where not to take our lunch, the best places to take pictures, the worst places to take pictures. They gave us everything. So once you get out there, it's kind of you're kind of on the streets for a while. You shoot Sunset Boulevard a lot. That's, like I was saying, the street that Tower of Terror is on. So there's a few locations on Sunset Boulevard. There's Vogue, which is pretty early. You'll see Vogue right on the left. There's Crosswalk, which is over by Once Upon a Time, one of the shops over there. Sorry, my throat hurts so bad right now. I just keep coughing. There's Rock and Roller Coaster, which is right outside the entrance for the Arc of Rock and Roller Coaster. And now there's Cruise, which is new in the lineup, which is over by kind of the back area of Rock and Roller Coaster. There's a new Lightning McQueen show, and if you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it. It's really cool. It's really loud, but it's really cool. So you shoot on Hollywood or Sunset Boulevard for a while. I suppose it kind of just depends on how lucky you get through the CDS, which is the cast deployment system. But you can be in one spot a while. You can pick up someone's break. It really just depends. So then Hollywood Boulevard's another place you could be for a while. It's just that first stretch you get right as you come into Hollywood Studios. And probably one of my best friends I made through Hollywood Studios, Jesse, shout out to Jesse. He lives on Hollywood Boulevard. Just got moved over to animation though. I hope I got that right, Jesse. So he's with Disney Juniors now. So he's shooting for Doc McStuffins, Pluto, Fancy Nancy, who's new, and Vampirina. So that's another area that you can shoot. It's a lot of fun. It also includes the Monsters Inc. So you have Sully and Mike. They also have, I'm not sure if it's still there. I don't know if they were just testing it out or if it's still included, but they have like a Fancy Nancy paint your face little area for kids to get their face painted. And they had a photographer there for a little bit, just shooting the kids getting their face painted and their reaction and everything. It was really cool. They also have Studios Arch, which is a part of the animation rotation. So yeah, I love shooting on animation. And then another place that you go to, that's once your character trained. I'm kind of jumping the gun a little bit. So after you've shot on the streets for a while, this whole process is a month long for Photopass training. So then you get view trained. So the view is where you get to look at and purchase any photos that you have from your vacation. It's also a place where you just talk to the lovely Photopass photographers. So we stand in there and we have these screens that it's funny. Everyone thinks they're touch screens for them, but they're not. They're only touch screens on our side. So you can go in there and look at your photos, and that seems a lot more stressful than it is. I was really nervous to get view trained because I was like, this is so much information, this is so much work. I don't know how I'm gonna be able to do it, but it's really, really easy. It can get hectic because a lot of people will come in at once, and you'll get a line. Sometimes there's a language barrier, but you get really good at figuring out what people are trying to say. And then if you can't figure it out, you've got guest relations right next door. We also have a hotline you can call, and there'll be a translator on it, which is super, super useful. So then after you get view trained and after you've been in the streets for a while, then it's time for you to get character trained, which is so much fun. So they start you out in a classroom, just kind of going over some principles of shooting with characters. Then they bring you out and let you observe. I got to observe Goofy, so I watched the photographer shoot with Goofy. Then I think we went over to Doc McStuffins, and I got to shoot my first time with Doc McStuffins, which was terrifying. I felt like I was doing such an awful job, but my trainer said I was doing good. It's just scary because you in your head, like you're capturing the moments that people are going to remember. Like these are people's moments that they end up on Facebook, end up in their house, and they'll follow them through their whole life. So I was like, I want to make sure that I'm taking good pictures and I'm taking enough. And so generally for characters, you're taking around like 7 photos. When I was newly trained, I was taking like 20 because I was like, I need to get everything. I need to get every single picture. And then once I got into my groove and I found my flow, it was like 7 pictures because there's a cycle that we take, and it's really useful to kind of stick to that cycle and get the pictures for the guests. So after I shot with Doc, then I think I went over to Chip and Dale, and I got to shoot the Chip and Dale. And those guys are knuckleheads. I love working with Chip and Dale because they just cause problems with people, and they always blame each other, of course, because it's never Chip's fault and it's never Dale's fault. So it's got to be one of them. And they'll argue, and it's really fun for the guest interaction because it'll be Chip and Dale just messing around with each other, and the guest kind of just watching them and laughing. So then after that, then I got to go shoot Olaf, and Olaf is so much fun to shoot. I'm saying that about everyone, but Olaf is great to shoot, and his room is scented, which is amazing for when you're in there for a while. You just get to enjoy that room. So that was character training, and it all just flew by so quickly that it took a month. And that whole time you're wearing your earning your ears little ribbon on your name tag. You take that off on your last day of character training, or it's a 2-day. I think it was a 2-day. Maybe it's just a 1 day. The character training was definitely just 1 day. So you take that off after you're done character training, and that's scary because then the next day you go to the park, it's now like if you don't have the answer to the question, you feel like you're like letting down the company because you don't have that tag on there anymore for security. So you really feel like you have to know everything, but you don't have to know everything. Everyone's like, oh, aren't cast members not allowed to say no? It's not true. You just got to know where to send the guest to get the answer. So that's really what it's about. But within Photopass, I didn't realize that I was going to get the family and the friendship that I got from it. I could go on and on and on, naming every single photographer I worked with and had a great time with, but I only have a little bit of time to make this podcast, and I don't have enough time to put down all the names, and I'd feel bad if I left someone out, but I had just a plethora of great photographers, and I don't think my experience would have been as good as it was if it wasn't for all the people I met. I had just such a great time. It was always a joy going into work, and it was great because it didn't feel like work. I was just going into Disney World to hang out with my friends, hang out with the characters, and make people laugh and smile. And it really didn't feel like a job. And I think that's kind of why I'm just so drawn to it, because it really didn't feel like a job at all. People always say, like, once you find the thing that makes you happy, like, you never work a day in your life. But, like, it's kind of cheesy, but, like, it's true when it comes to Disney, because when I was working there, it was just fun. It was just genuine fun. I would mess around with the guests. I'd make fun of them a little bit. I'd take selfies with them, and they loved it. They'd eat it up. So it was truly just one of the best jobs. I could never imagine not working in entertainment now that I've been doing it for this whole time. Wow, now that I'm not with Phil, I realize how hard it is to just go on a podcast and just talk for a while. I feel weird doing it. I feel like I'm missing things. I feel like I had way more ideas in my head to talk about. But I'm going to kind of wrap it up here. I just had such a good time. I know I'm going to do a part 2. I was talking to Phil. I want to do another solo episode where I can go in more depth about what I did for to have fun, some things around Disney, and things I did outside of Disney too. Because if you do the DCP, you can't just hang out at Disney. You got to go do other things. So Phil and I are thinking about a few episodes. We want to have a guest on. And so if you have any ideas for a guest, please let us know. We're thinking about bringing a cast member on, maybe an entertainer or a custodial member, anything that you can think of that would be interesting to hear from, let us know. Maybe you want us to get in touch with a vlogger, whatever it may be, let us know and we'll try to make it happen. If you want to shoot us an email, again, you can go to castconversations@gmail.com. Our Facebook has a handle now. It's @CastConvo, just like our Twitter, @CastConvo, and then our Instagram, @CastConversations. So it's pretty much just a variation of Cast Conversations every single time. Yeah, and then Phil and I will have another episode coming out on Tuesday. I'm going to try to call him in, and so we can do another podcast like this. And then hopefully our audio quality will be a little bit better come next Saturday, and we'll have another episode up, probably with a video. But thanks for hanging out with me for this little bit of time. I know it wasn't too great. It was more informative, I suppose, just telling you a little bit about what my life was like working. It was just it was a great time. But thanks for hanging out with me. I hope you guys have a great weekend, and we'll see you Tuesday. Bye, guys.
The podcast you just heard was made using Anchor. Ever thought about making your own podcast? Anchor makes it really easy for anyone to get started. It's a one-stop shop for recording, hosting, and distributing podcasts. Best of all, it's 100% free. Sign up now at anchor.fm/new. That's anchor.fm/new to get started.